tonight's talk, good evening, welcome everybody, thank you for being here. And tonight, anyone who's live on the webinar, thank you for being on the webinar tonight. We're going to talk tonight about some of the things I learned over the last decade of being in practice, working with lots of people, and some things I wish I knew sooner about health. So tonight's talk is called The 7 Things I Wish I Had Known Sooner About Health. What we're going to go over in this packet, you'll see your handouts that you have, and if you're on the webinar, you will see the PDF of the handout that we have. And I'd like you to take notes along the way because I think that'll help as you come up with some ideas that might be helpful to you. Tonight we're going to talk about genetics. Genes, you can turn them on and you can turn them off. Number 2, we're going to talk about arthritis. You can slow it down. Number 3, we're going to talk about stress. You can use it to fuel you. Number 4, the gut. Take care of it or it will take care of you. Number 5, food. It's changing and it's changing us. Number 6, detox. The toxins are killing us. And number 7, vitamins. They are not all the same. So here we go. Genes, genetics. Now what was interesting is some of you have probably heard about the human genome. And what was interesting about that was it cost $3 billion and took tens of thousands of scientists to be involved to figure out the human genome. Now it'll only cost you about $1,000 to know your genetic structure. What was interesting about that is then they took and they found out from the human genome that there are things that turn on and turn off the genes, and this is called epigenetics. And this man that you see on the slide was one of my teachers at Palmer College of Chiropractic. We used to stuff ourselves in the hall or whatever we would do when he was a visiting professor, because he was just so profound about his work. And he talked about something called epigenetics, and it's a new science. It's not new to me because it's about at least 15 years old. But what Bruce Lipton found out, who's a PhD, he said the implications of this research will radically change our understanding of life. It shows that genes and DNA do not control our biology, that instead DNA is controlled by signals outside the cell. So what we found out is we actually turn on or turn off our genes. So what does that mean to you? Now we're calling them good genes or bad genes, but really there's variants that are carried on genes, and those variants that can be turned on can start you up in disease processes. Like if you had a family history of cancer and you knew that was in your genetics, then at least what you can do is you can work with not turning on the cancer gene. One thing that would turn it on is smoking cigarettes, sometimes eating food with too many toxins in it, things like this. So we can actually impact our DNA for the good or for the bad. What also is not told with genetics is that a lot of times you can turn off a gene that's already turned on. We often think once we have something, it's done. But our health, every lifestyle change we make can lend to that. Now, if you're interested in your human genome, it's not $1,000. We can get it for about $99 plus a little bit of a shipping and handling charge, and we can swab it, and it takes about 3 weeks to get back. And we can find out, like through that genetic testing that we use, we can find out just 10 or 12 of the causative factors for cardiovascular disease, etc., the correlated things. So it's really an interesting test, and I encourage every one of you to get your genetic testing so that you can know what to look for and what you can work towards. Next, arthritis. You can slow it down. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't hear, well, my dad had a bad back, or my mom had a bad back, or my mom had a hump back, and I guess that's why I have it. We all kind of think it comes from our parents. We're really born with perfect spines, but over our lifetime, we do get arthritis. And there's another thing I hear often, which is, I have arthritis, there's nothing I can do about it. But we're going to talk in just a minute about what you can do about arthritis, because you can change it. The number one cause of arthritis that I've seen over the years, to just put it into terms that you guys would understand, is wear and tear. Like often we know a runner or a UPS man, a runner's going to wear out their knees. A UPS man, if they're bending over and picking up packages all day, we would assume that they might hurt their back or eventually get arthritis. But we all have some of that going on too. And then there's the abnormal curves or lack of curves. Like in your neck, you're supposed to have a gentle forward curve. If you don't have that curve and it's straight, you start the process of arthritis, which I'll show you in just a minute. So what's important to know is where your spine's at, because not all arthritis is the same. Now, there are 3 phases of arthritis. We're going to see it in just a minute. There is mild, moderate, and severe, or phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 arthritis of your spine. So if you just say you have arthritis, my question would be, well, which one do you have? Do you have mild arthritis or severe? They're very different things to deal with. How old is your spine, therefore? Now, if the central nervous system, the brain and central nervous system runs down through the spinal canal or the spinal bones, the vertebral bodies, really it's just a protection for locomotion so you can move, and for your nervous system be protected so that you can go do everything, be in motion. So what's important is that that central nervous system is housed by either a corroded pipe of the spine or a good pipe with good discs and things. So we want to always take care of our spine, because how much our spine is allowing our nervous system to flow out and through us is how healthy and energetic we are. So the question I have for you is, are you harnessing all the power of your nervous system, or is your spine locked up and not manifesting the power that it can? So as we talk about arthritis, and a lot of times people wait until there's pain or no pain. So we've been kind of given this model in society that, like, I've had people come up to me at talks and say, that was a great talk. I am going to come to you when I hurt myself. And I laugh and I say, okay. I used to try to talk them out of it, but we've gotten this idea that if there is no pain, I'm healthy. And if there is pain, we kind of have bells and whistles and alarms, and we kind of worry about it, and then we usually go do something about it. Often, in fact, we wait till the pain's so bad that then it gets our attention, and we kind of go to the dark side, don't we? So one of the things with the pain versus no pain model is it's a bad model. It's a poor model. It is not an accurate model. In the nervous system that we just talked about, all the nerves of your spine, think about this, only 30% can actually sense pain. Only 30% of your nerves could actually register pain. The rest don't have the mechanisms to. So you could have a crushed nerve and not feel anything. So one of the things that you should do is know that pain is the last thing to show up and the first thing to go away in most cases. So a lot of times people are prematurely quitting their care because they are out of pain. And that's okay too. These things happen. But one of the things I want to teach you about is why the model doesn't work. A great example of this is a heart attack. I know some of you in the room have told me, and some of you probably on the webinar, have had friends or family members that have had a heart attack. What often happens is during a heart attack, you don't have a little bit of pain every day for 15 years, where it's just a little bit and you're going, ooh, there's something wrong with my heart. It's at the end, the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks before they have a massive heart attack, they get really winded and start saying, oh, I'm having chest pain. In fact, sometimes it's just right up to the point where they're having the heart attack. So that's a great example of where pain didn't tell us that there was a condition present. And herniated disc is another one, disc problems in general. I often have patients that go, doc, I promise you I didn't do anything, and they have a herniated disc or a disc injury, and they're walking in, barely walking. Sometimes we have to roll them in or take them in wheelchairs. And so what happens is I ask them, okay, what did you do when this happened? Oh, I just bent down to pick up my tennis shoe or put on my shoe, and boom, I was down on the floor. Or they get out of bed and they didn't do any, I swear I didn't do anything. And that is because they already were set up for the disc herniation, that then what happened was it just blew out at the end. It was already predisposed to it. So it is never always what you think. A lot of times it's a long-term problem over time. Okay? So we're back to that mild versus moderate. Now on this chart, on the slides that you'll see on the presentation, you're going to see how the first one here is curved really nicely. You want a gentle forward curve, and that's your neck. You can see the chin in the front, and you can see the shoulders in the back. And as we start aging, phase 1 here, you can see how the neck goes straight. Phase 2, the disc starts disintegrating, and phase 3, the discs are all fusing together with bone spurs. So that's in the neck. Phase 1, again, mild arthritis. Phase 2, moderate arthritis, or phase 3, severe arthritis. Now, many people call these many names: degenerative joint disease, degenerative disc disease, osteoarthritis of the spine. They're all, I just kind of categorize them under arthritis of the spine. We all have it, and some of us, like the UPS workers perhaps that are lifting, or the runners that wear out their knees, are going to run out a little faster or wear their spine out. But you want to know where you're at. It's very important that you know if you're in mild in some places or if you're in severe. And the way we take care of it is almost always the same. We start you up on a short series of adjustments. So we take you through a change. We put that curve, or we try to put that curve back back and the neck. And then after, we maintain it with regular maintenance adjustments. And I know most of you in the room and many of you on the webinar are probably thinking, yeah, I used to do that once a month and I felt so good. A lot of people do the maintenance adjustments just to feel better, but it will actually slow down arthritis and help slow down the wear and tear on the spine. So that's pretty exciting. Number 3, stress. You can use it to fuel you. There are 3 main systems in our body that I say deal with stress. Now, of course, our whole body deals with stress, but I try to boil them down because they're really things that I think you'll want to know about. The spine, the nervous system, speaking of the spine, from about T1 to T12, if you get jammed up in the mid-back, which many women and men have, but almost all women come in, when they're stressed out, they'll say, oh, it's hurting in my shoulders. We could all handle a shoulder massage most of the time. And so one of the reasons that is because we jam up because of our thoughts and our stress level in our back. Our back actually registers the nerves and the nervousness and the stress. And what's interesting about that is that's the most sympathetic dominant, or the fight or flight mode of the body. So if your mid-back's jammed up or subluxated, what you're going to find is you can't get a relaxed feeling no matter how hard you're trying. And also too, when we're under stress, as you know, the adrenals fire up like as if a bear's chasing us, and we go into a cortisol and adrenaline response. And then of course we have the thyroid that's in the throat, and the thyroid can actually give you, it's a metabolic, it gives you metabolism and energy, but the thyroid then can take a toll over the years too with too much stress in our life. So when these 3 systems get bogged down, they work against each other. And when they work against each other, you just don't feel good. You usually gain weight, it's hard to get out of bed in the morning, and you're overwhelmed by little things. So we're going to talk today about how now to take those systems and use them to work towards your benefit by taking care of them. And one of the ways you can do that is by this talk by Kelly McGonigal. It was a TED Talk, and if you haven't heard of TED, it's some of the most interesting and creative minds in the world come together, and presidents are there in the audience. And this is a woman who studied stress for decades, and what she found out is she's looking at stress a lot differently. We almost all feel like stress will kill us, but what she found out is if you look at stress differently, I think you're going to catch it with Kelly, that you can actually use stress to fuel you.
Now, in a typical stress response, your heart rate goes up and your blood vessels constrict like this. And this is one of the reasons that chronic stress is sometimes associated with cardiovascular disease. It's not really healthy to be in this state all the time. But in the study, when participants viewed their stress response as helpful, their blood vessels stayed relaxed like this. Their heart was still pounding, but this is a much healthier cardiovascular profile. It actually looks a lot like what happens in moments of joy and courage. Over a lifetime of stressful experiences, this one biological change could be the difference between a stress-induced heart attack at age 50 and living well into your 90s. And this is really what the new science of stress reveals, that how you think about stress matters. So my goal as a health psychologist has changed. I no longer want to get rid of your stress. I want to make you better at stress.
That's Kelly McGonigal on TED Talks. You can just go ahead and YouTube it and you can find that free talk, the whole thing. It's about 15 or 18 minutes long. And what, again, that she found out was it's the way people view their stress that either constricts or dilates their blood vessels and how we respond to it. So you want to go with the view as much as you can that this is exciting that this has happened, or something good is going on, or wow, this is a challenge, let's see how we handle it. And if you can keep a positive attitude in how you reflect on it, I think you'll find that you can manage your stress better too. And then if you take care of those 3 systems, the nervous system, maintained through those regular chiropractic adjustments, you again are going to respond to stress better because your back feels better and your power's on. Your adrenals, they need periodic rest. They really do need vacations. And you can take DHEA and things like that that are bioprotective to the adrenals, so you can help bolster them up so that you can manage your stress better. And your thyroid, you can take iodine supplementations. Most of us are actually deficient in iodine now that we no longer eat iodized salt with the iodine in it, and also selenium. And there's other glandulars we have here in the practice. If you'd like more information, we're going to have more talks on that, and look on the website for some of the videos on those 3 energy systems. But if you can maintain and use them, you'll feel a lot better, and you'll find that your mental reaction to stress can be so much more positive. Next is the gut. Take care of it, or it will take care of you. What is funny about the gut, when people first started calling it the gut, I just laughed a lot because that's funny, you know, but these are the scientists of today, and that's really how we relate to it. So the gut is all of the nervous system, the enteric nervous system, basically the whole digestive system would be called the gut. And what's interesting about it is here is just a definition of the enteric nervous system, which we call the gut. And it says in there some really interesting stuff, that there's an intrinsic nervous system, and they're calling it the second brain, which I find fascinating, that our gut is now our second brain. Tune in more. So the second brain, there are over 100 million neurons wound inside your gut. That's a lot of neurons, you guys. And 70% of your immune system they're registering is in your gut. Okay, so your immune system, a big part of it is in your digestive system or your gut. I boil it down to, if your gut is healthy, so are you. And if your gut isn't healthy, you aren't healthy either. So we want to know how to work with it. How do we make our gut healthy? How do we win the war in the gut? So it goes into the bugs in the gut. You'll see on this slide that there's all these little bugs that they're pulling out. There are, I think at this point, science is finding that there's over 200 good bacteria or good bugs in the gut. So that's a lot, and you want it to be diverse. And you want to have the good bacteria, the good bugs, win over the bad bugs, the bad bacteria. So how do we do that? It's the one that wins is the one you feed. So if you're feeding your gut things like prebiotics, such as organic apples, chickpeas, endive or onions, they help aid the good bacteria. So prebiotics is actually a word that means it's food for the good bugs of the gut. So you're literally feeding the good bugs that are going to help you digest your food. And then there's probiotics, which actually add good bugs back in. Believe it or not, pickles, the good ones at the health food store, or sauerkraut, kombucha, things like that have actually good bacteria in them. And I'd encourage every person to be on a probiotic on a regular basis, that means daily, and take it at night, because then it seeds it better. What feeds the bad bacteria is pretty obvious. Sugar, sweet tea, I have to say in Florida here, white bread, pasta, processed foods. We're feeding the bad bugs accidentally, and I know we can all have a meal like that, but you have to realize if you're feeding more of the bad, you're going to grow more of the bad, and you're not going to be healthy. If you're feeding the good, you can start winning the war and change your life and your health. And there's also other ways where we can kill off the bad and have detox programs for your gut. But most of the thing you want to know is you want to take care of it on an ongoing basis. So come talk to me more, because the gut fascinates me, and I've been working with my gut for over a decade. Next is food. It's changing, and it's changing us. Food is number 5. Food is defined according to this slide, which is the American Heritage Dictionary, as any nourishing substance that is eaten, drunk, or otherwise taken into the body to sustain life, provide energy, promote growth, and repair. So that sounds right, doesn't it? Well, then we go to what we call the SAD, or Standard American Diet, SAD. Standard American Diet. And it's changed over the years. Listen to this. The Standard American Diet, this was done in 1999 by the U.S. Census Bureau. So you can't make this stuff up. They say the Standard American Diet includes 1 year every American eats about 111 pounds of red meat. We eat 580 pounds of dairy products. We take in 39 gallons of alcohol, 53 gallons of soft drinks, 24 gallons of coffee. I will admit I do 48, but that's okay. And 154 pounds of sugar. So I changed out my sugar for my coffee. But if we look at that, isn't that really as sad as it looks? And we're all doing it. I mean, we really have to admit that, even if we're trying to modify it. So what we found out about food as I started researching it, they're saying that in the last 40 years, it changed more than it had in 40,000 years. Think of that. In the last 40 years, it's changed more than it had in 40,000 years. So why? Well, there's a whole story about that, and we're going to give you that in a minute here. But they're finding, because of our SAD diet, our standard American diet, that over 70% of Americans are overweight or they're obese. 30% are obese, which is, a deadly condition. And then 70% of children, they're finding, this was in a heart study, which is very scary, 70% of children 12 to 13 years old already have the beginning of the hardening of arteries. They're finding it in 8-year-olds. That's what my endocrinologist told me. He did a book on it recently on cardiovascular disease. And he said that they're finding hardening of the arteries in 8-year-olds now. So our food is altering our bodies and making us sick. Now, this is from the World Cancer Research Fund, which makes perfect sense to me, but she says, or they say, eating a diet of processed foods is proven to raise cancer risk in women. Kind of obvious to me anyway. So what's really happened? Why did our food go so bad, besides the fact that we're eating so much sugar and coffee, drinking so much coffee? But what really happened to our food supply in the last 40 years is the soil, number one, has been stripped and destructed with pesticides, fertilizer, and erosion. The topsoil used to be really thick, and it's getting smaller and smaller. And that means that good, rich soil that gives all the nutrients and minerals to the number two, our fruits and vegetables, there's no nutrients to suck out of the soil into the food. So then we've got GMOs, that they altered the way the food is actually genetically modified organisms is what GMO stands for, but they've altered like wheat to have more gluten, a protein in it, so now it's changing the way it responds to our gut. And then it also leads to a variety of health problems that many people are talking about now. Then we found out, number four, that the worst food is the cheapest. Yes, you can go to McDonald's for every meal, but if you ever watch the movie Super Size Me, I don't think you'll do that. And then number five, poor food has been directly with many diseases, but at the same time, a lot of us don't know the difference on how to do this. So that's what happened. Our food changed. So one of the things that they're saying, and they've always told us, with the food pyramid, is it's changed into 7 to 13 fruits and vegetables every day. Like the experts are saying, we need to have more fruits and vegetables. Why? Because you'll see in a moment that the food doesn't have its nutrient content that it once had. So how do we make up for this? How does one eat? If you ate 7 to 13 servings of fruits, you will be overweight. I find that I only eat about 1 serving of fruit a day because there's no way you can stay slim and trim if you're eating like fruits all day long. And then vegetables, I try to get my 13 portions in, but my goodness, that's a lot of vegetables. So I often will use a supplement called Juice Plus. It's actually whole food. Literally, I laugh about this. It's like the Jetsons to me, where they shrink food down into a condensed pill, and you can take all of your fruits, veggies, and berries that help with the cardiovascular risk all in one pill, and it ends up being about $1.50 to $2.50 a day. Now, I still take vitamins. We're going to talk about that in a minute, also supplements, but these are a big, nice standard where every day you can take them, and then at least if you did eat your broccoli or not, that you've had enough in your diet that day. And so that tastes, that makes it a little easier for you. Next, we're going to talk about vitamins, number 6. They're not all the same. So speaking of the Juice Plus supplements, that's a whole food supplement. But vitamins are changing, and we are not seeing the change in them. So sometimes I used to ask my patients, are you on a vitamin? And a lot of times the patient would say, yes, I am. And I'd say, that's great. What are you on? And they'd say Centrum Silver. And I'd say, great, at least you're taking vitamins. Until, of course, I started researching about vitamins. And I did have a little bit of what I'd call a meltdown. I sat down and cried because I was even selling vitamins that were lower quality than I had understood. Now, every vitamin, when you go to the health food store, Walmart, Target, whatever, when you go, they'll say the best vitamin ever, or this is a superior vitamin. So who can we trust except comparative studies? But we're going to talk about why vitamins are not all the same. One of the reasons is because a lot of times they're fortified. Like when we see orange juice or milk that's vitamin fortified, I thought that was better for me. I thought getting vitamin A and D milk would be better than not. Or vitamin C, extra vitamin C additional, or vitamin D in the orange juice. Is anyone else like that, where you thought it will be healthier? Well, I found out they're actually not healthier because of the way they're fractionated, the vitamins are added in, it's actually less healthy. So that was a big disappointment, like milk fortified with vitamin D. The next thing I found out, which was crazy to me, is a lot of times China is the one synthesizing vitamins. And this quote up here on the slide, you'll see that it says, China is now the primary source of synthesized fractionated vitamins. The municipal water used in manufacturing is often contaminated with heavy metals and other chemicals. And in 2011, there was a case of infant death that was linked to an actual bacteria in the formula that the babies had. So we're getting a lot of our stuff from out of countries with water that isn't safe. So you want to know about whether they're working for you or not. And how do you know that? You look at something like a comparative guide. Now, when this comparative guide came out, it was almost like this. I'm surprised that you can even find the book. They had to change it because they just told the truth about what's called bioavailability. I want everyone, even on the webinar, everyone to repeat after me. Bioavailability. Bioavailability. That's right, one more time. Bioavailability. What you're going to find about that word is you'll be glad I made you repeat it. I promise. I know it seems silly, but I want you to remember the word when you're out at the health basket or a health food store, and you show your friend and you say, yeah, this vitamin isn't very bioavailability, yeah, or bioavailable, because you're going to want to need to know that word or you're going to sound dumb. So anyway, and you know, it takes a while. So one of the things we found out from the comparative guide, where we found out about bioavailability, the amount when you take a vitamin that you're actually getting. Listen to this. Centrum Silver, you get 4.7% of its promised 100% USRDA. Okay, again, 4.7%. If you're a 28-year-old male in perfect health, that's who they did the study on. So I don't know, when we're aging and we don't have good digestive enzymes, how much we're getting. One a day, Advanced Women's Formula, I thought would be pretty good, but it's 1.9% that you're getting of the vitamin. I jokingly say, why don't you just dump the whole bottle into your throat, because that's what you're going to need to get 100% USRDA. You're going to have to take 100 of those supplements, or at least 50 something. Nature's Sunshine comes in at a whopping 26.2. GNC Women's Ultra Mega, it is Women's Ultra Mega horse pill size, it's 28.2%. And then USANA is 96.1%, but at this point I don't buy USANA because it's about $85 for a month's supply. So I had to find a way to get bioavailable vitamins. For many years I just went to USANA because it was the highest grade vitamin. When you take it, you can feel it. The ones that are good, that do break down in your body and your body can absorb them, and you feel great. So remember, they're not all the same. The next thing you might want to know if you're talking about vitamins and how to deal with vitamins is you might want to have a testing called SpectraCell. They can take out blood, and SpectraCell can be done, and it's called micronutrient testing. And what they do is they find out what you're truly deficient in. So if you really ever want to go the gamut and be a little bit of a geek like I am, it's about $190. Probably right around $200 at this point, but you can actually find out if you're deficient in any vitamins and get exactly what you need back. But one of the things, the reason why we're so deficient in things and why we need vitamins, here's an example. This is from Tim Lang, the professor at the Center for Food Policy in London, England. He said, you would have to eat 8 oranges today to get the same amount of vitamin A that your grandparents got from a single orange. Are you guys getting the picture? Or 5 oranges to get the same level of iron. So our food is deficient at this point, even if we're eating organic, and a lot of it, we're not getting the vitamins we need. So you do need vitamins and supplements, I believe. Last but never least, my favorite topic. And the topics that as we go along on the webinars in the future, we're going to be talking about the gut, healing the gut. We're going to be having specific classes just on detoxification, how to really do it, how to do it safely, and how to pull out heavy metals. And we're also going to be talking in depth about the spine and arthritis related to that, and how you can do spinal stretches and strengthening. But tonight we're going to finish with detox. And the reason it's one of my favorite topics is because I was very sick. Any of you who maybe on the webinar have heard or read my book, or any of you in the room. I wrote a 270-page book on getting through fibromyalgia, and a lot of it came from the pesticides that I had inhaled that had made me so sick I almost died. And I don't know about you, but gaining 35 pounds, barely being able to get out of bed, not being able to remember anything, and having my whole body ache and hurt from chronic fatigue, Hashimoto's autoimmune thyroiditis, fibromyalgia, it wasn't a great life. And I feel really good now, and part of why I feel really good is I'm using and detoxing on a regular basis, and I'm eating less foods with toxins in them. Okay, so food toxins, okay, so here's the toxins. They're everywhere. It's like we're in a toxic soup. And some of my talks on this, people get almost depressed. So don't get depressed, because know that there's always hope. But it can be overwhelming when you start realizing that they're all around us. They're coming off of everything. For instance, the chairs you're sitting on, as pretty and nice as that leather is, they're probably sending off gassing of fumes that we are breathing. The new car smell, for instance, is a bromide, and it's actually very toxic to your thyroid gland. So yes, that new car smell is actually bad for you. What a disappointment. There's food toxins like flavorings, colorings, preservatives, chemicals that are linked to health problems all the time. There's heavy metals that are in our water, such as mercury, lead, arsenic. We're absorbing them when we're showering every day. That long, wonderful shower that you have is you're bathing yourself in some of these things that absorb into our body. Environmental chemicals, like now we know about BPAs, plastics that we're drinking out of. There's arsenic, dioxins. There's things like at my dry cleaning. I had to open it up in my garage with the garage door open because there's chemicals that come off of dry cleaning that will actually make you sick and toxic. Upholstery. There's many things. They're finding out upholstery stuff is linked to obesity and diabetes. Remember how I just said I gained a lot of weight and I didn't feel so good? Then there's airborne chemicals. I'm from Iowa, which, they call it the goiter belt, and I know now why, because when we're breathing in the pesticides, and in Lake County we're in an agricultural area where we're breathing in pesticides and different herbicides and things, and we don't even realize it. We think we're out in the fresh air, and really we're ending up breathing in molds, etc. So all these toxins are always all about us, and they're coming in and streaming into our body, and we have to deal with them. And so over time, a lot of times people don't know, they build up. So this slide is one of my favorites because what it has taught me is over the years, I have done detoxes with people, and we've had intensive ones, sometimes 21-day detoxes. And on this slide, you're going to see that they pile up in our body over time. So this stuff doesn't go anywhere. Like when we're accumulating lead, mercury, we know that mercury's in our fish, and we're accumulating it in our body, it doesn't leave our body. So it's happening, it's building up over time, and a lot of times these are linked to causing cancer. You can imagine if you have a bunch of arsenic in your body, you're probably going to get cancer from it. You can't have a lot of arsenic without having it be dangerous. You can't have a lot of lead poisoning in your body and not have it be dangerous. So it makes sense. So what I found is I used to do these big detoxes, and then I'm like, I'm done, because they're not easy always. But we have some gentle detoxing here at the office that is tasteless, odorless, a little bit like arsenic, but it's good for you. And what you'll find out from it is that it doesn't hurt you at all, and it doesn't have to be a run to the bathroom explosion of it's not one of those, it's a chelation type of treatment, oral chelation, really powerful stuff. But you want to detox, and you want to detox on a regular basis. Sherry Rogers, MD, Board of Directors of the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. Do you guys get that? Said most people who think they are tired are actually toxic. And I believe that is true. Oxford University research shows that 70% of cancer cases are related to our diet. Hold on, 70% of cancer is related to our diet. So remember the first topic of genes? I think we really are turning on genes that turn on cancer. You can have cancer in your genetics, but you don't have to turn it on. And then there's only 5% they're saying of cancers are hereditary. So perhaps it has nothing to do with genes, and it has to do with the food we're eating. 1 out of 3 will develop cancer. Now they're saying that's 1 out of 2, which is a pretty scary thought. 15 million new cases of cancer are expected to increase annually by 2020. and 5% increase over our current rate. So it's just going up. You're going to see it all the time. Last fall, I actually had some testing done, and I found out I had the beginning stage of breast cancer. And I did some really hard work, and I found out now that I'm all clear of it. But it's not for anyone who's, unless they're very ready to know if down the road 7 to 10 years from now you'd have a tumor and a growth. And I am one of the healthiest people I know, not all the time. Of course, I drink my coffee and I expose myself, I'm sure, to lots of chemicals, and every once in a while I'll have gluten and I have a hamburger, etc. So I'm not beyond perfect. But if you think about that was already happening to me with having all this at my fingertips on a regular basis, I just worry for you guys too that you want to make sure that you're cleaning out the toxins so that you don't end up onsetting these type of things. And it turns out that my genetics from my mother and my father had given me the predisposition for it. So I'm going to have to work hard to keep that gene turned off, keep the cancer out of my body, but at least I can control things a little bit more through my lifestyle modification, meaning eating better, taking more probiotics and things like we talked about today. So you can change your fate. It's very important for you to know that. If you liked what we talked about today, please feel free to give my office a call if you're in the area and you're on the webcast. I want you to know that you can give us a call and I'll sit down with you. Please bring your hand out so that I can talk to you specifically about what points you brought up, what came to light. There's usually ding, ding, dings going on in each of our heads at different points. And I'd love to talk to you more about that, no strings attached. If you're on the webinar and you're somewhere far away in the United States, I can still do a consult over the phone and I'd be more than happy to do that. Again, you're just going to call that same number and set that up. But I want you to know there are options. It does matter. Health is very important to have great lives. And I know you can feel better, and I know you can have a better life with great health. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight. We're going to open up now for questions, but I want to appreciate that you all came and look forward to more webinars in the future on some of these subjects in depth. You'll see them on our website, and you'll also see them coming up on some emails. Thank you so much.